Hey there, it is Sunday, and that seems like as good of a day as any to watch some movies. So here in honor of Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, the Mexican holiday where people celebrate their loved ones that have passed on, I'm going to do a quick little bonus quadruple feature recommendation. I know the Halloween one that I did was pretty short as well, so I'm just going to do kind of a little bonus one here. And today's topic is going to be communicating with the dead. Now, I love movies that have a good seance scene, and I especially love movies that are pretty much all about communicating with the dead. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Of course, as always, I have 4 recommendations. Now, right now, I wanted to film this one in this room specifically before I moved out. I'm pretty much entirely packed away. In fact, I had to bring some movie lights because there's not even any lights in here unless you have lamps, and all of the lamps were gone. And I wanted to film it in this room. This room was my office in my old apartment. And this room kind of has a different energy than the rest of the apartment. And since day one, right when we walked in, it kind of just had a different vibe. And Gina always thought this room was haunted or had something going on. I don't really know if it does, but there definitely have been some creepy things that have happened in this room that haven't happened in any other parts of the apartment. So I just wanted to do the Communicating with the Dead episode in here while I still had that opportunity. One of the things that happened in this room was for the first 8 or 9 months that we lived here, there was a few times where Mel will always, my cat Mel, who's actually here with me because I can't quite bear to be here alone. I actually find empty apartments to be really creepy. Most locations don't really creep me out, but something about empty apartments really freak me out. So I'm actually not going to be here too long because it's like 3:30 in the morning right now, which is the hour of the wolf, and I'm a little uncomfortable, to be completely honest, but Mel's just kind of sitting right off camera watching me right now. Thank you, Mel. The office door, we always kept the door closed because we didn't want the cats coming in and chewing on any of the wires for the computer. But Mel will always kind of see you out when you leave. If he's out in the living room, he'll walk you to the door, and when you get there, he's always at the door and he meows. And so one day I head to work and Mel kind of meows as I leave. I see him when I go. When I get home from work and Mel is not there to greet me. So I'm like, that's odd. And then I walk into the house and I hear him meowing. And I'm like, where the heck is he? And I come in and he's closed in the office. He's in this room and the door's closed. So somehow through the course of the day, nobody's come in or out of the apartment since I left. Somehow the door has opened, Mel has gone in, and the door has closed behind him. I told Gina about that, and she thought I must have been mistaken, and I left the door open, and Mel went in and closed it behind himself or something. We kind of logicked it away because we didn't want to think it was too creepy. And then about a week later, I was gone. I was out of town or I was at work or something, and she called and she said, I just got home and Mel is locked in your office again. And that happened about 4 or 5 more times until we stopped letting Mel in this half of the house. Because there were times when we would be out watching TV or something and we would just hear meowing, and we would come back into the hallway and Mel was just standing at the door meowing as if someone on the other side was harassing him or talking to him or trying to entice him into the room. It was pretty odd. He just walked out of the room. Mel, come back. It was a little odd, but it was always this room. It wasn't any other room that it was happening with. But eventually we just kind of ostracized Mel to the other half of the apartment, and he didn't even come back here anymore. In fact, the past few days when we've been packing, it's been the only time that Mel has come back in recent days. A couple times the door has slammed when I've been sitting in here, but I always chalked it up to, interesting gusts of wind coming in through a different window. Air channels are pretty strange. But one time I was sitting at my desk, which was about right here, and I had a bouncy ball that I was playing with, and I was bouncing it, and it bounced off the foot of my chair, and it rolled across the room under the sofa that was on that far wall. And I looked down, and the bouncy ball was all the way wedged in the back underneath the sofa. And I was like, well, I'm not going to see that thing for a couple years probably. And then I forgot about it, and a week or two later, I was home alone. I was sitting at my office desk. I was editing, and I got up to use the bathroom, and I came back like maybe a minute later, and that bouncy ball was just sitting right in the middle of the office floor. And that creeped me out. That creeped me out. And Gina has this theory that if you're scared of ghosts, or you think a place is haunted, don't talk about it out loud, because then the ghosts will know that you're creeped out, and then they'll start to fuck with you, which I always, teased her about. But when I walked in and saw the bouncy ball in the middle of the floor, I straight up pretended like I didn't see it and just walked past it as if it didn't affect me, in case there were any ghosts sitting there listening. But I've certainly now, sitting in this room, laid all of my cards on the table for letting the ghosts know that I was in fact creeped out by this room. So I'm just gonna hurry up and get through these recommendations of films about communicating with the dead. That way I can just pack up my lights and get the fuck out of here. So let's see. Our first movie. Okay, our first movie is from Kevin Tenney. I just recommended his movie Night of the Demons. He also made a movie in the 80s called Witchboard. Witchboard is very cheesy. It's a real cornball 80s movie. It's not particularly scary. The reason that I like Witchboard and why it holds such a place in my heart is because I got this Ouija board for my birthday when I was a kid. I really wanted a Ouija board, and my parents didn't really want me to have one, didn't really want me playing with one in the house, but they got me one anyway. But to try to scare me off of using a Ouija board, my dad rented this movie Witchboard, and he rented Witchboard 2 as well. So we watched both of those in one night, and it's about kind of a knockoff Ouija board, and people use it, and then there's a demon that tries to possess them, and it follows the people who use it around and kills them, and it's a lot of fun. And it did not scare me from using the Ouija board. However, one time I was using this Ouija board when I was a kid. I was in junior high. I was using it with my brother Patrick, and we, it was like stuff was being spelled out, and it spelled out, our entire front yard was rocks, and it spelled out footsteps in rocks and slamming doors. And we were like, okay. So I was like really creeped out that I was gonna hear footsteps in the rocks late at night. And not 5-10 minutes later, we finish using the Ouija board. We're the only two home. I go into the bathroom to take a piss, and I'm pretty freaked out, so I leave the door wide open. Patrick's on the other end of the house. I saw him walking down the hallway, right? So he's completely out of range. I start going pee. Right as I start going pee, the door slams so hard, and it couldn't have been Patrick, because by the time I run over, and just within seconds, I've pissed all over the place. I pull the door open, and I look, and I see him running toward me down the hallway. He heard a door slam, and he thought I was trying to scare him, and he didn't believe that I was not the one who slammed the door. But that really freaked me out, and that did put me off using Ouija boards for a very, very long time. But the movie Witchboard did not, but it's a lot of fun, cheesy 80s movie about a possessed Ouija board. So let's take a look at kind of a more modern version of like a haunted Ouija board, which is Ouija Origin of Evil. This is a 2-pack with Ouija, the first one, which we're not going to watch. We are going to watch Ouija Origin of Evil, which is a prequel by Mike Flanagan, who has since gone on to do, The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor and Gerald's Game, and he's done a lot of really excellent work in horror over the past handful of years. But Ouija Origin of Evil is, I think, where he really broke out of the mold that people were putting him in. They thought he was just going to be kind of kind of a generic horror filmmaker. At that point, he had done Oculus and a couple other movies, and then it was like you get a prequel for a movie that was really not very good. And I think people thought you would give that movie to a very not well-respected director, because obviously that one's just a cash grab that you wouldn't expect to be very good. But he actually brings a lot of artistry and a lot of craft to Ouija Origin of Evil, and he's really good at crafting scares. In fact, I think Origin of Evil is kind of where he peaks out in how effective he is at crafting scares. It's also a period piece, which is kind of a big trend in horror movies right now, is particularly with like haunted house ghost type movies. You see it in the Conjuring universe. Every single film in the Conjuring universe, all of them are period pieces. They're all set in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and I think that's great. I love haunted house movies that are period pieces, and this one is set in the late 60s, I believe. It's just really good. All right, the next two, you've seen them, you love them. Of course, we're gonna talk about Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice is great. It also features an absolutely knock it out of the park dynamic performance by Michael Keaton, best performance of his career. He is phenomenal as Beetlejuice. I mean, you've never seen Michael Keaton be more different than Michael Keaton. This is just one of those iconic performances that kind of everyone does impressions of, but it all started right here with Tim Burton's film. Gina Davis is also in this, and she's excellent. It's all about communicating with the dead, because you gotta talk to Beetlejuice, say his name 3 times, and then he'll come and he'll haunt your house for you or do whatever. He'll scare people. The highlight of the movie is the Deo scene around the dinner table when they're trying to have a seance, and then all of their bodies are getting possessed into dancing, and it's a lot of goofy fun. But yeah, Beetlejuice is it's peak Tim Burton, before he kind of sold out and started phoning in all of his movies. This one is kind of where he was like doing his creativity on all cylinders. He was doing really great work in this one. And there's also some like pretty horrific imagery in this. The scene where Gina Davis stretches out her face, both of them, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin, stretch out their faces, and they have these like really long eye sockets and these like weird beak. It really scared me when I was a kid. That image really haunted me. I was very afraid of seeing like people come around the corner in my house looking like that. But yeah, movie number 3 is Beetlejuice, and then the last film we're gonna watch is, of course, the romantic summer blockbuster Ghost. Ghost really tugs on your heartstrings. It's about Patrick Swayze, who we've since lost, and Demi Moore. They're in a relationship, and Patrick Swayze dies, and the whole movie is about him trying to communicate with Demi Moore to like give her messages and warnings, and her not being receptive to hearing those messages because she's so heartbroken. It's a really sweet movie. I mean, it's just a classic. I mean, her at the pottery wheel with him behind her at the pottery wheel. It's this one will make you cry. It's pretty cheesy, but yeah, it's a classic. Also, Whoopi Goldberg won her supporting actress Academy Award for this one as well. But yeah, it's also directed by Jerry Zucker, who's half of the Zucker brothers, which is a crazy choice to direct such like a heartfelt romance, because the Zucker brothers are the ones who directed Airplane and those types of like very zany, crazy comedy movies. But he toned it down a bit for Ghost. So the 4 films that we're going to be watching for communicating with the dead on Day of the Dead are Witchboard from 1986, Kevin Tenney's film, Mike Flanagan's Ouija Origin of Evil, Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, and Jerry Zucker's Ghost. So those are the 4 films that we're going to be watching for communicating with the dead. So before I skirt the fuck out of here, let's go ahead and see if we can make some communication. What do you think? Good idea? All right. I think someone on the other side has a message for us. Vote! Okay. Election day is just a couple days away, so I actually do hope you vote. I'm going to get out of here now, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.